the security dialogue.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. This is yet another edition of the Security Dialogue on Muslim Television Ahmadiyya International. My name is Sadiq Educhum, your host. We have been discussing issues concerning conflict, peace, and security. And as we have always been indicating that on this show, we sought to educate and inform our viewers about issues concerning conflict, peace, and security towards achieving the global agenda of peace. Here, once again, with me in the studio is an accomplished individual who has been doing so much when it comes to issues of conflict, peace, and security in Ghana, but of course, with an African perspective towards the discussion. Here with me in the studio is Mr. Emmanuel Felix Mante. He is the Executive Director for the Bureau of African Conflict and Security Management. He's the one who is going to help us to look at the topic for discussion for today, which touches on peace operations, the context of violent extremism in Africa. And you will agree with me that Africa has witnessed an unprecedented surge in violent extremism in the last decade. The activities of Somalia's Al-Shabaab dominated the discourse when it comes to violent extremism in Africa in the past. However, in recent times, violent extremism in Africa has extended and taken deep roots in the Lake Chad Basin and Sahel region following the aftermath of the Arab Spring in 2011 and the eruption of the conflict in Mali in 2012 and subsequently in the 2020 coup d'etat. Today in the studio, we take a look at peace operations in the context of violent extremism in Africa. Mr. Mante, you are welcome to MTA Studios.
Thank you very much.
Is this your first time of being here?
I'm grateful for you hosting me on your platform.
Wow.
This is my first day of being in your studio. And
the religion of Islam means peace. Sure. And so we sought to welcome each and everyone to our abode. And what exactly we seek to do on the security dialogue is what I have explained. I mean, we want to educate the masses. We want to inform them about their immediate alertness and all of that. And today, when we look at the global perspective and we look at security within Africa, looking at the fact that there is this a lot of brouhaha and there's a lot of panic when it comes to violent extremism and all of that. Taking it from you, and you are a researcher and you've been somebody who has been involved in some of these issues. I want to first of all ask, when we talk about peace operations, what exactly are we talking about in the context of Africa peace and security architecture?
Well, thank you very much. And let me go a little backtrack to extend my greetings to your cherished viewers.
Yeah, sure.
And the team that's put this program together.
Sure.
And let me say that when you talk about peace operations, I want to extend the argument and the discussion further and put it within the context of peacekeeping.
Okay.
Well, when you talk about peacekeeping, by the definition of Brutus Gali, he said that the deployment of UN mission in the field, hitherto the agreement and the consent of the conflict parties involved. So it's about getting people on the ground so that they will carry out activities and operations leading to achieving peace. And it has an aim.
So would that mean that there might have been some maybe conflicts that has happened before they move into maintaining this peace, or it's a process that is engineered to even avert conflict in the first place?
Peacekeeping is the process where there's conflict ongoing on. There is a breach of security, conflict ongoing on between parties. and the UN will deploy a force to the ground, to the field, to ensure that there is peaceful settlement of the conflicts. So it is the mission that goes on the ground to settle the dispute. That is the mission. That is the peacekeeping processes that is ongoing. So that is the first aim, to settle a dispute. If there's no dispute, there's no conflict. Okay, so when we put it in the context of violent extremism, how do you juxtapose that so that our viewers can understand when we are talking about peace operations in the context of violent extremism in Africa? I will come to that for us to appreciate the discussion properly. You see, violent extremism and terrorism is a new dimension of conflict. Mostly peace operations or peacekeeping was being advanced based on conflict between two parties, which are mostly states, where the belligerents are states and then the actors are hierarchical armed groups. But within the context of violent extremism, the belligerents are mostly not states, are non-states belligerents. And then the actors within are not hierarchical armed force or armed groups where you'll be able to settle down and do proper negotiations so that you settle the dispute. So it is a complex phenomenon of conflict that is affecting the world today. It's a new trend, a new threat that has emerged. So peace operations within the context of violent extremism must also adopt a new dimension, a new strategy altogether, so that it wouldn't be business as usual where states are, the combatants are state forces and maybe some other state forces where they have reached a point that they want to settle the dispute, so you can easily enforce the agreements and other things so that there will be peace. It's not like that anymore. And if you look at the African region, especially the West African sub-region, the major threat of violent extremism, like you did indicate in your earlier statements, that it started with the Somalis, the insurgency going on in there. But from 2011, 2012, the collapse of the Libyan regime led to proliferation of arms into Mali for the rebellion of the Tuareg for some way, somehow, them deciding to establish their own state. So with this trend, there were immediate access of guns in the system through the Sahel region. You can talk about the Chad, you can talk about the Burkina Faso, you can talk about Mali, you can talk about Mauritius and the Niger. So these 5 Sahel countries have become the base for the armed insurgency of terrorists and other activities that are ongoing currently. And with this, there have been several attempts to make sure that our peace will be achieved within the region. If you take, for instance, Mali, MONUSCO was deployed by the UN to go and then make sure they will be able to bring an end to the conflict that was going on,
stabilization.
For the stabilization as their mandate was. But MONUSCO had suffered great criticism, and then their mandate, people are criticizing them that it's not clearly defined.
Let's link that one to how, when you look at the international community, how it is battling with the increasing number of extremist groups, largely inspired by, local grievances. So when you look at the fact that MINUSMA, which is the United Nations multidimensional integrated stabilization mission in Mali, if you look at its failure, and then you look at how the world in itself is struggling with dealing with this, of course, new dimension of activities concerning the terrorism and then all of that. What kind of international framework, that you think can be put in place to ensure the effectiveness of peace operations?
Well, let's look at the main activities of peace operations when they go to the field, and I'll come to the international framework. let's look at within the African context, our frameworks, because as for the international framework outside African continent, we talk about the United Nations Charter, the UN Charter, as the main framework that guides peace operations. But if you look at peace operations, their activities will include creation of an interim UN administration within the region or the country where the conflict is ongoing. And then there is civilian policing in operations of the peacekeeping missions that will go on the field. And then we have the institution of, how do you call it? Establishment of institutions. And then making sure that there is an amicable solution to the problem.
What kind of institutions?
Institutions like peace architectures. If you come to Ghana, for instance, we have the National Peace Council that exists. So areas where there are conflicts and other things, the mission's mandate or operations are mostly to ensure that these institutions are established and they are strengthened to work to bring about peace within those areas.
And they do that in collaboration with the various forces,
the
like
various
the
security actors within such countries. And then we have the infrastructure reconstruction, because sometimes we see that when these terrorists attack and then they do whatever thing they will do, there are vast destruction to infrastructure and a whole lot of things. And coupled with other conflicts activities that goes on, you realize that there must be reconstruction of the infrastructure that is ongoing. But when you look at the frameworks that are required to ensure that there is actual peace being achieved within these regions where we are threatened with terrorist activities. You have, for instance, the regional partnership that is African Peace and Security Architecture. That institution is to ensure that all the frameworks that exist they are able to enforce them, implement them, so that Africa, with the threat of terrorists or terrorism, will be eliminated. The number one framework that we look out for to ensure that it is implemented is the Constitutive Act of the African or AU. The African Union Constitutive Act. It stipulates that all African nations should ensure that there is absolute peace, or activities or actions that breaches the peace of the continent are resolved, including activities of terrorism or violent extremist activities. So that Constitutive Act must be implemented to the letter. The next framework that helps to make sure that we are able to battle this violent extremists and whatever thing that is going on within the sub-region is also the ECOWAS Protocol. ECOWAS Protocol relating to the mechanism for conflict prevention, management, resolution, and peacekeeping and security. This is a protocol that guides activities of ECOWAS states, so that they will be able to do this.
Thank you very much for that. Now, looking at what we have just explained, there are various actors that are supposed to come on board in ensuring that this peace operations become successful. I want to find out from you, and then you are a civil society activist, so I want to find out from you, what strategic role can civil society play in preventing and countering violent extremism?
Civil society cannot be taken out of...
I'm sure you can do that for me maybe in the next 1 or 2 minutes.
1 minute or 2 minutes.
And we'll touch on some other key important
Let me
issues.
do that for you. You see, civil society's action is very key. One, in helping in capacity building of the security institutions that exist. Number two, in research and education for the general public, that is public education. They help in research and provide the needed information for policy makers and government institutions and the government itself, that are to make sure that they implement, for instance, the ECOWAS Protocol on Prevention of Conflict and Security and other things. So civil society's action is to bridge the gap between information gathering from the grounds, intelligence gathering, to inform security actors, that is the core security actors, so that they will be able to act with a sense of urgency in addressing the issues of violence extremism within the continent. Okay. So civil society helps in research, and the other thing they also are key, which they must at all times be there for the state where there are threats of violence extremism, is early warning.
Okay, okay.
If civil society fails to inform on early warning signs and then open up on the information as to where these violence extremists are operating, where they are getting their source of financing, where they are going to act, when, how, you will be at a loss. Okay,
so in that framework, there's also going to be that kind of information sharing.
Information sharing,
when they have
experience sharing.
Wonderful.
Gathering of intelligence.
Wow.
It behoves on civil society to bridge that gap.
Wow. Wow.
But failure of which we will all be at loss.
Okay, so now let me ask this. You know, most of these activities by terrorism and then violent extremist groups are more of radicalization. I want to find out these peace missions in various areas that you've touched on. For example, look at the Sahel region, all of that. How should the processes be to de-radicalize and of course improve building of resilient communities in Africa?
Well, the first thing I want us to talk about is increasing representation of women within the peace operations, the peace missions that they go out there.
Why?
Because, you see, women are mostly affected, women and children, when there is conflict, whenever these violent extremists carry out their activities. Okay. Women are the most vulnerable.
Okay.
So if we want to resolve problems of women, then we should be able to involve women in peace operations.
Okay.
Without which it will seem that, oh, it's all about men. It's all about men.
So that will bridge the inequality gap.
The inequality gap that exists between. And you see, if you fail to involve women in peace operations, women become more vulnerable because they will not address their problems. Okay. And then these violence extremists will use women who are aggrieved and who are vulnerable in so many aspects of life to perpetrate their activities and their crime against nation states. And then number two, what we need to do to make sure that we de-radicalize whatever activities of these violence extremists is widening the net on intelligence gathering.
Okay.
It shouldn't be that military intelligence is having their own intelligence, the police intelligence having their own intelligence. Okay. Let's just widen the nets.
Okay.
Civil society involved, the general public involved, the media you are involved, everyone is involved in intelligence gathering. Okay. That will help us to be able to immediately stop activities of these violence extremists. Okay. And then the last one I want us to talk about is to depoliticize peace operations.
Okay.
It's very, very, very necessary. Okay. If you look at the continent, there are so much politicization in peace activities, peace operations that are ongoing. Okay. Countries and nation states try to take advantage of peace operations and then perpetrate their own political agenda.
I mean that is a very striking point that you've made there. But I mean, of course, this discussion we cannot exhaust it. I mean, we almost getting to the end of the time. But I want to find out from you that this violent extremist group, they have indicated that it is about needs, it's about their interests. I mean, local grievances. So what is moving forward, linking it with governance? What are some of the key things that we are supposed to do, I mean, from the governance level to ensure that we are able to ensure peace, or we are able to prevent some of these activities of the extremist groups?
You see, governance, or let me use good governance, is all about delivery of public goods to the people.
Okay.
So in an area or in an event where the various governments fails to deliver public goods, public goods like good and quality education, quality health care, access to clean and then decent water, accommodation, jobs and those things, if they are not available, Definitely, you get the people to be aggrieved. So let the people get the best from the various governments on the African continent, and that will build trust among the general public for their government. Oh. If that trust is not there, then people will become aggrieved and they begin to act in ways that will affect all of us.
Wonderful, wonderful. I mean, this has been a very wonderful discussion once again on the security dialogue, and you just heard from Mr. Emmanuel Felix Mante, who is the Executive Director of the Bureau of African Conflict and Security Management, a civil society organization here in Ghana, touching on issues of peace operations in the context of violent extremism in Africa. It's unfortunate that we have to end this session, but of course, we continue to bring you very exciting episodes talking about conflict, peace, and security, all geared towards making our continent a peaceful place to transact business and for us to move in and out to do our business without any fear of our lives being threatened by these violent extremists and terrorism groups and all of that. He made mention of the fact that trust is very important when it comes to governance, and then our leaders must ensure that in curbing this menace, we have to make sure that the availability of jobs, the availability of good infrastructure, educating our people, and all of that are in place. And here, I take another very exciting and very instructive quotation from the Holy Quran to support this argument. And this is coming from Quran chapter 40, verse 10, and I quote, "And protect them from evils, and he whom thou dost protect from evils on that day, him hast thou surely shown mercy." And that indeed is the supreme triumph. And so what it means that we need to protect each other whilst we look up to our dear God. And here on the security dialogue, this is what we sought to do, because Islam itself stands for peace, and we advocate that we become peaceful members of the community. Once again, I have been your host, Sadiq Edichum, on the security dialogue. Till we meet same time next week, this has been the security dialogue on Muslim Television and Media. I will say a thank you to the technical team, the cameramen, the editors, the sound engineers, the producers, and the coordinators, all those that have made this program possible. We say thank you very much. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.